In this episode, our cocktail features Ferrand 1840 Cognac, a spirit that recaptures the heady cocktail days of the 1800s. This eminently mixable cognac was created by Maison Ferrand owner Alexandre Gabriel with help from today's guest, spirits historian David Wondrich. Ferrand 1840 Cognac was named Best New Product at the 2012 Tales of the Cocktail, awarded 95 points from Ultimate Spirits Challenge, double gold at San Francisco World Spirits Competition, and ranked number 3 best-selling and top-trending cognac by Drinks International. Cheers to Ferrand Cognac, and here we go with our show.
Welcome to the Cocktail Guru Podcast,
A show about food, drink, and entertainment,
with a tight focus on the good life.
and all things delicious, luxurious, and fun.
I'm Jonathan Pogash, bartender, author, and the host of Cocktails the Grand Tour.
And I'm Jeffrey Pogash, wine and spirits professional, author, insatiable collector of culinary ephemera, and so people tell me, an engaging raconteur.
And my dad. Here we are, another episode of the Cocktail Guru Podcast. Is everything okay on your end, Dad? It sounded like there was a lot of shuffling or dropping of things, or what happened?
Well, everything will be fine as soon as I start tasting my freshly made drink.
What is your freshly made drink, by the way?
Well, it was produced by me, not created by me, but produced in honor of our guest, because our
phenomenal.
guest is responsible for so much in my life.
Oh wow, that is a huge statement. I'd like to take a little cheers.
This is a drink called the Japanese cocktail.
There we go.
Yep, and it's from one of our guests' favorite authors, Professor Jerry Thomas, who is the godfather of cocktails, who created the Bartender's Guide or the Bon Vivant's Companion in 1862, which I'm sure we will be talking about during this interview. And
Excellent.
As soon as I found that book, which David, our guest, is the one who suggested that I buy it, as soon as I found it, I started reading pretty much all the recipes. And the Japanese cocktail tended to stick out in my mind because it's made with brandy. I make mine with cognac.
I made mine. Guess what I made mine with?
Cognac.
Bourbon. I don't know.
No, I used apple brandy from Vermont.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And it's delicious. And I think, and it is, as you were saying, Dad, it's in honor of our guest, Dave Wondrich. And Dave is here. If you all have YouTube and you're watching the video, you can see him, and we see him, and it is so great to see your face, Dave.
Yes, David.
Likewise, it's been hard times, and I miss seeing my friends. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, so do we, and it's great to see you.
That's one of the hardest things.
And we're going to drink to your health.
We're going to drink to
your
health.
We have not done that.
To everybody.
I will raise a glass. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.
Just a little splash of mezcal.
Okay, well, that leads me to a question I have for you, Dave.
This is so good. So good.
We ask all of our guests before we get into it, what is your desert island cocktail? So if you're stranded on a desert island, what is the drink? What is the drink that you are imbibing?
It doesn't have to be a cocktail, a drink.
Well, I'll probably. I doubt I'm going to get stranded with a fully stocked bar, so it'll probably be something distilled
just
from.
You are.
I'll make a still out of bamboo reeds and clay and distill whatever fruits I find on the island.
Yeah.
So that's probably what I'll be drinking.
Oh my gosh!
Why not just keep drinking?
So that'll be like the original spirit ever created.
Yeah, it'll certainly be my original spirit. But if I got to land on the island with a fully stocked bar and an ice machine, solar powered, of course. I mean, historically, the drink I always return to, like so many of us, is the dry martini. So I'd be going back to that, I think.
Wow.
That is an answer
of
that's
course,
an answer that I would only expect an answer like that from Dave Wondrich.
Well,
really.
and we mean a dry gin martini, of course.
A dry gin martini, exactly.
For those people who may not be aware that the original martini was made with gin.
That's definitely my over many years. That's what I always go back to. So I assume in times of trouble and strife, that's what I'd go back to then too. So
yes.
So Dad is quite a history buff, as many listeners and viewers know, and this is a huge treat for all of us, obviously, but I think especially for Dad.
Well, yes, because David Wondrich, our guest, is the foremost expert in the field of cocktail history, the history of spirits, rare cocktail book collecting. He's founder of BAR, Beverage Alcohol Resource, an organization responsible for educating thousands of would-be bartenders as well as experienced working bartenders. And as a matter of fact, I was a student in the first class.
The very first one, Jeff.
By BAR.
You and David Kaplan and
yes,
a number of others who have gone on to, great things. So,
well, I have the complete list because just this morning I found the original compendium, the guide
amazing.
that you had,
amazing.
The whole big thing. Bar manual. It was called.
That was just put together days before, I believe. So.
Yes, and it has. I have the complete roster of students.
Amazing.
Yeah. Who were some of those other students that were in there, Dad?
I can name some of them. I believe.
Josie
Packard was there.
Junior Marino
was there. Willie Shine, the sadly late. Paul Tanguy, Tad Carducci, just a real a hell of a group. It was really quite something.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of the name of the lovely young lady who was there as well, who became a consultant in the industry with her partner.
Are you talking about Chad and Christy?
I am. Christy.
Yeah, of course.
Christy was there. Yeah.
Christy was
Thank
there.
you,
You're
Jonathan.
right.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. So this is, in my opinion, another historic interview because this David Wondrich is somebody who's going to go down in history if he hasn't already. And
please.
He's going the material that he has given us will be used for another century by bartenders and restaurant owners and students of cocktails.
I just hope people will take it and correct it and fill in the holes, and which I'm very conscious of.
Well, it probably doesn't need a lot of correction because
it always does.
Imbibe and Punch and your great new book, which is the Oxford Companion to Cocktails and Spirits. I mean, there's so much great information. Yes, thank you, Jonathan.
I'm holding it up. I'm holding up the massive.
Awesome. I love to see it.
And without David,
so heavy.
Without you, David, we probably wouldn't even know who Jerry Thomas is. It's really thanks to you that you brought him to the forefront.
I was very fortunate to get in at the right time because even as I was working on my book on Jerry Thomas, there were a couple other people who were contemplating such a thing as well. So it was really for in my case, a matter of happening to be there right at the right moment to be able to pick up the fruit that was not even low hanging. It was already, right there lying on the ground and ready to be picked up by the first person who wandered by. So I was very fortunate in that, I have to say. There certainly would have been a lot of this stuff was there for the finding. And I got very lucky in that.
We can say that you beat them all to the punch.
Wow.
Yes, the name of one of David's great.
Yep, there we go.
Punch.
Oh my goodness, Dad, you are just full of these punchy puns. I have to say. But one thing that you just mentioned, Dave, that is really interesting to me is that you talked about your literary work and your books and how you want people to kind of fill in the gaps and edit and fill in the pieces later on. And that is very humbling. I do not believe Jerry Thomas would have been one of those people with that same mentality when he wrote his books. Am I wrong?
Well, it's hard to say with him because ultimately, he never left a diary or anything or, an autobiography. And so he tended to be pretty high-handed, at least in the little we've seen. But at the same time, we haven't seen, that much of him just sitting and talking to people. So it's really hard to say what his, I mean, I think you're right that he seemed to have a lot of swagger and so forth. But at the same time, he was a skilled illustrator and artist, and he seemed to have a little bit of a sense of humor about himself. So I hope that there was some humility there to carry him forward. But you could be right about that.
Yeah, he may not have been the most humble fellow around.
Maybe not.
Well, but he did leave us with this.
Yeah, he did. And the first cocktail book published, so that's something, and that's quite something. He also left us with there's some other stuff. There's a couple interviews with him. There's a lot of the press certainly talked about him a lot, and we can get a kind of sense of what he was doing. We've got great descriptions of his bar, which was not what we think. It was not a hushed temple of mixology. There were shooting galleries in it, and pool tables, and billiards, and bowling, and all kinds of stuff. I mean, his place was it was a place of amusement and fun, more than one of hushed contemplation.
Is this the bar in Flatiron?
This is the one. That one was a little smaller. This was his main one at 30th Street, at Broadway and 30th Street, between 30th and 31st, that later became the Bijou Theater. Now demolished. The Flatiron one is still the original building. This one is not. But right. This one, I mean, this had a statue of him when you walked in, a statue of him mixing drinks. And the bar itself was 2 stories high, the inner room, and there were 2-story high paintings of him mixing drinks on the walls. So it was quite a place.
Not very humble.
Not very humble.
He was a true showman who, in the tradition of P.T. Barnum.
Is there artwork of this?
I have yet to see any. I assume something was done. I assume somebody drew it at some point or photographed it. Even there was supposedly a photograph of him mixing drinks floating around in the 1880s. But if so, we have yet to find it. The only artwork I have of one of his bars is from one that he kept in 1860, 15 years before, that was also a fancy place, but not like that. It wasn't wild.
Wow. And your career began in a very strange sort of way, David.
Well, I was an English professor, so
but you have a PhD in comparative literature.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, and then you went on to become an English professor.
Yep, because that was a job in New York. But I wasn't originally. I didn't set out to become an academic. I wanted to become a rock and roll star, and I played in bands for 10 years.
Don't we all?
Yeah, right. It seemed like fun at the time, and I got to tour and play all kinds of gigs and all that. But eventually that didn't that didn't pan out. And so I went back and finished my degree, my undergraduate degree, which I had given up on. And I couldn't really find a job, so I thought I'd go to grad school and in the hope that would get me a job. And I ended up switching from political science to comparative literature and getting my degree in that, and then getting a teaching job in New York City, which are very rare. So I was very lucky to get that. And it turns out it wasn't really for me. It was less amusing than I had hoped.
And did you play music through childhood, teenage years?
Nothing.
No?
I started in the great punk explosion when I was about 17 or 18. And so I started playing bass in punk bands, which
I was just going
simple.
I was just going to say bass. I see it.
And let me just say that we know David as an author of cocktail books, spirit books, but he's also the author of a music book called Stomp and Swerve. Right, David?
That's right. That was while I was teaching. I started on that book to save my sanity, and I was also writing about music for the Village Voice and even for the Sunday New York Times. So I started off, I started my, I guess, professional writing career pretty close to the top already.
Yes.
So that led to a job at Esquire. So I started drinks writing really very much at the top. I can't really recommend my path to anybody because it sounds so moronic, start at the top. But at the time, there was just so little of this stuff going on that the opportunity was there. Now there's a great deal of competition. Then there really wasn't any, or there was very little. And that made a huge difference. I fell into my job because of great luck and because as a New Yorker, I knew a lot of people, and I was able to stick with it because I recognized an opportunity, which was really a once in a lifetime opportunity to write for Esquire, one of my favorite magazines and a real American institution. And I ended up working for them for 17 years, which is a good long run.
But did Esquire hire you to be a music writer?
No, drinks.
Cocktail and spirits
writer? They hired me
really?
To build their or to write their Esquire drinks database. And that led to a Drink of the Week column on their website. And then after proving that I was able to handle that, I was able to switch to the magazine, and I became a contributing editor, and their drinks correspondent was the title we settled on.
And had you written about drinks before that, or was it?
I hadn't, but
you hadn't. So they just looked. They had a look at you, and they were like, "This guy obviously knows something about drinking."
Well, I got the gig for the website from a friend of mine who knew I liked cocktails and had a small collection of cocktail books, and knew that I could write, and thought that this might be an amusing thing. Somebody asked him to do something, and he had to figure out somebody to do it. And there were very few professional drinks writers at the time, so and he didn't know any. So he said, "Well, Dave, knows something about cocktails. At least we've had cocktails together, and I know he can write, and he could probably use the money because I was a junior professor with a small child at home." And so it was really a confluence of things that got me into this. But it was for me, it was just very fortunate because it was the right time. There was rising interest, and there weren't people really writing about this stuff. Very few.
What year was that, David?
That was the end of 1999. So there was the Wired cocktail history website, and the Wired book was just about to come out. And that was really the first, of kind of the 21st century cocktail books. William Grimes's book I had and knew and had read a couple times, and Barnaby Conrad's book on absinthe. Those were my two models for this, along with a bunch of Kingsley Amis and Charles Baker and a few other random cocktail books that I had. But really, I just had to make it up as I went along.
And what were the bars that you were going to at that time?
I always go to McSorley's, so that's not a cocktail bar.
It's not? It's not?
It's just McSorley's. It's McSorley's. But I would go to the Bemelman's bar. Karen, my wife, and I were big fans of that. We'd go to the 21 Club occasionally to have a drink.
Did you run into the Dale, Audrey, Jason, Dushan at that time, or any of those people?
Not right off. No, I didn't, because I had kind of my own. I was a New Yorker of many years standing, so I had my own social circle, and we went out with them. We did go to the Rainbow Room a couple of times, and tried to get in on the last night and couldn't. Although Donald Trump and Melania cut to the front of the line, which is pretty typical. Yeah, but and Henry Kissinger did too. Actually, he didn't. He got in line behind us, and then his wife came along and dragged him up to the front. We thought that was amusing. But other than that, we drank a lot at Grange Hall, which was an early pioneer in craft cocktails and retro cocktails. And Drover's Tap Room was another that was related to Grange Hall. Those places were lovely places to have drinks. And a few of the other cocktail bars, Great Jones and places like that. But in general, we were, we weren't going often to the fanciest cocktail bars.
What about Temple Bar?
We went there occasionally. We didn't care for the cocktails so much at the time, so we didn't go.
And why is that? Why is that?
They were too big, too warm, and I don't know. Some of the staff was a little high and mighty about the whole place, so we were a little lower to the ground in our tastes. We were Grange Hall people.
Very good. I remember the place well.
It was a lovely place to drink. Del Pedro is a veteran of there.
Yes. You and I must have first met in 1999 when you got started writing.
Right after. Certainly 2000. I got started at the very end of 1999. So it was, 2000 I started getting to know people in the industry, and went on my first junket, which was down to DC to hear about the plans for the George Washington Mount Vernon distillery. Right. That was the first press trip I ever went in on. And then Jeff, you were very formative in my career, my drinks writing career, because we went to Scotland together on a truly memorable trip. And you took us to a bunch of lovely distilleries, but also showed us some of, Scotland itself, and really taught me how to drink Scotch properly, which is outdoors in the rain.
Definitely.
When it's cold.
Yes,
and that's when you really, really appreciate a good smoky Scotch. And I will always remember that.
And by a warm, blazing fire inside of a castle.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, that was a life-changing trip.
Yeah, I made a number of those trips to Scotland, and those are among my very favorite trips throughout my entire career.
They were phenomenal.
Yeah.
I hear the stories, and it made me want to be on one of them, and I was never able to experience a Jeffrey Pogash press trip. I have him as my father, obviously, and we've traveled together in the past.
Well, he was the best of the best, I have to say. In very select company. The Jeff Pogash press trip, to Scotland, we ended up going to a lighthouse and climbing the lighthouse stairs and standing on this lighthouse on a tiny little island in the middle of nowhere, off the coast of Scotland. We went to the most remote bar in Scotland, the Old Forge in Mallaig, which I will remember to my dying day as one of the greatest bar afternoons I've ever spent. So, thank you for that, Jeff.
Where
that
did you
is
go?
Still my favorite coffee mug in the world.
That is showing a coffee mug.
Yep, from the Old Forge.
It's the Old Forge coffee mug, which I use almost every day.
That. Yeah, me too.
Yes.
It's indestructible and beautiful, and
it is.
And I still make my hot toddies in it by preference.
And it keeps coffee nice and hot too.
Yeah. It's that's a great souvenir.
Yeah. Another souvenir that I wanted to show you is something that you organized in 2003, and something I'll never forget because you inspired me earlier than that, but this event really inspired me to go on and collect more and more cocktail books and learn more about Jerry Thomas and about all the other great founding fathers of bartending and cocktails. And it's this event.
Oh, yeah. Our the Slow Food tribute. I mean,
yes, the tribute to Jerry Thomas.
I can only most loosely say I organized it because I had help in the form of the wonderful Sean Kelly, the wonderful Ana Jovancic, and the wonderful Alan Katz. Yes. And those people are organizers. I basically had some ideas, and they made them happen. And you as well as our chief sponsor and the person who helped us get the other sponsors on board. But this was an amazing day in March 2003 when we took over the old men's bar at the Plaza Hotel, which had been a restaurant for a long time since Prohibition. But it was the decor was unchanged. And we did a tribute to Jerry Thomas, the first, since his death in 1885, and got some of the top mixologists in America to mix Jerry Thomas drinks. And we had a whole free lunch spread that was magnificent. We had Terry Waldo to play ragtime piano, which is admittedly a little bit anachronistic because ragtime came along a little later than Jerry Thomas, but still it was pretty old and it sounded great. And the whole thing was utterly fabulous. It was a real gathering of the tribe and the kind of a chance for people who were interested in this kind of antiquarian stuff to look at each other and meet each other and forge connections and just also to have a lot of fun. And
it's the first time I met some of the great bartenders of New York and the United States. I mean, too. Dale was there. I had known Dale, but he was there. He had a cocktail station. You had a cocktail station. Sasha Petrusky, Ted Hay, Audrey Saunders.
Robert Hess.
Was Gaz there?
Yeah, Gary Regan and
all
Gary. His,
he was. Gary did the Martinez.
His absolute glory with a beard that you could use to, that would probably sleep six under its cover. and finally, there was George Papadakis, the head bartender, the emeritus head bartender at the Plaza, who had tended bar at the Black and White Ball in the 1960s, one of the all-time most notorious and famous New York social occasions. So it was really quite the group that we had, and to see people drinking Arak punch. I got Arak flown in from Germany for that. To see people drinking that, and to see people drinking Tom and Jerry's and Martinez's and Brandy Crustas and all this stuff was just fantastic. It was really, really something that hadn't happened in a really long time. And some of these drinks hadn't been made in decades. And to see everybody amazing. Enjoying them, it really was something.
This group was a who's who of great bartenders in the United States. Yeah, and it would be you'd be hard pressed to put together another group like that.
Ted and I put together the brochure, and that was the beginning of that's what got me to write Imbibe, is I had to do a little biography of Jerry Thomas for the front cover.
Yes.
And I obviously did way more research than necessary, as is always my habit. And then I said, well, I should turn this into a book. And little did I know.
Voila.
Well, 20th anniversary of this 2003 event would be next year. So, maybe
we'll have to do another one.
I think there should be a 20th anniversary.
I think there should. I think that's a good idea. Let's see what we can do. Let's see if we can rope Ted into doing the booklet again.
Yeah.
Because he did such an amazing job with it, with laying it out and designing it to look like it was printed in like 1915. It's really lovely.
But Jonathan, thank you for bringing that up, because we are due for another event.
Yeah, we are.
Yes, we are.
We just have to find substitutes for two people we have lost along the way, and that's Gary and Sasha.
And George, I believe, too.
But no substitutes.
There are no substitutes.
And George,
they would each have their own separate station for sure.
Yeah.
We'll fly the missing people formation. We'll say, they're around the back somewhere. We're just waiting for them to come down.
Fortunately, we do have proteges.
Yeah, we do.
We have some Sasha proteges we can incorporate.
Well, we're all Sasha proteges, really.
Yes, that's true.
We are.
That's true.
Where did the fascination with Jerry Thomas begin? You said around when you did this event in 2003, you started doing a lot more research on him. And was there sort of the fascination with him before?
There wasn't so much. There was some, because I had, even before I started writing about drinks, I had come across his name in the works of Herbert Asbury, who was the great early 20th century historian of lowlife America. And I was a huge fan of his Gangs of New York and some of his other books on that. And the minute I got this gig at Esquire, I went out and got his book on Jerry Thomas, which I had seen referenced many times in his other works and also in William Grimes's books. Or his book. And so that was interesting to me, but I wasn't like hugely interested in him. The tribute came about when I was talking with, I was introduced to Alan and Sean and Anna, from all of who were from Slow Food, at a friend's birthday party, our friend Andrea Strong's birthday party. And Alan and Anna and I were talking about Slow Food, and I was broadly sympathetic, being half Italian and having spent a long time there. I kind of understood the Italian premises of this whole thing, premises. And so I'm talking to them, and I said, if you want to really do this in an American way, we should do something on cocktails, the real American slow culinary art. We should have a tribute to Jerry Thomas. And they were like, who's that? And I said, well, he wrote the first cocktail book. And, I held forth, as is my way after I've had too many drinks. And they normally this is the kind of talk that leads nowhere, as you know.
Right.
It's just casual talk in a bar. But I was talking to three of the most organized people on earth and three of the best organizers. And they immediately called me up and followed up. And next thing I knew, we were drawing up menus and lists of bartenders and lists of potential sponsors, Jeff Pogash at the top of the list, and so on and so forth. And so you be careful of whom you talk to in this world is all I could say.
I would say this was a pretty influential event because there weren't that many cocktail events before this, were there?
Not like this. Not historically
not in a grand
ones.
way.
Yeah, not in a grand way. There were book parties. There were a few, Discus, the Distilled Spirits Council sponsored some things, but there wasn't stuff that was like historical like this, and things weren't usually this elaborate. This had a historical theme. nobody had really done that before. That was new. You know, it was this bit of revivalism was a big deal, and we got written up extensively in the New York Times, which is the thing that you always want if you're doing an event. You know, because that gives you nationwide reach and a huge audience for it, and that helped a great deal as well. You know, it really helped to move things forward. We had Dale making blue blazers at this thing. You know, that was endlessly fascinating to people and very dramatic. There was a lot of stuff that was dramatic for people.
Yep, great cocktails. Gary did the Martinez.
Oh yeah, and
Audrey did Tom and Jerry.
Oh my God, yes.
And you were doing the Arak Punch. I remember.
Yep.
Wow.
And so so Imbibe did not come out until 2006, 2007.
2007,
2007. And so between the time of the book being released and this event that you guys had, what were you doing between, say 2003, 2007?
First there was a book proposal, and that took a while. And then it got rejected by everybody, and that took a while. And then we tried again and, revised the proposal, and that took a while. And then finally, probably middle of 2004 or something like that, I signed a contract to write the book. And then writing the book took a while. And then editing it down took a while because what I turned in was 1.5 times as long as what it was supposed to be. And finally, we got the book out and came out in November of 2007. In the meanwhile, I wrote a little quickie cash on the barrelhead work for hire cocktail book because I was desperately broke, called Killer Cocktails. There we go.
I'm holding it up right now.
Dad is holding up the.
That's kind of an interesting book because it's one of the first modern cocktail books to have modern drinks in it. Not to have things like mudslides and all that. This is one of the first cocktail books to reflect the influence of the kind of budding cocktail revolution, which is kind of weird because it was just a one-off, very, very quick book in an existing series of pop-up books. So it's in a kind of not very helpful format. And I wrote it in literally 6 weeks. It was very helpful, and it's been in print ever since and continues to sell copies. So that's very good.
But I like that Killer Cocktail book because it was one of the first to compile sophisticated cocktails.
It really, I have to say, it really was. It was a weird little book, but there's some cool recipes in there,
and it got really good reviews too. Generally,
it got a few,
It got good reviews.
It considering it was a pop-up book that you were supposed to put on your kitchen counter while you were mixing drinks, it's an odd little volume.
Now, talking about your other work, Punch.
Absolutely.
Did this particular book have influence on you?
I can't see what it is.
Well, I'm holding up a book called Oxford Nightcaps.
Oh, absolutely, it did. Yeah.
Yes.
This
that was a book you told me I should go out and find.
That was the first book I know dedicated entirely to drink recipes.
Yes.
That was, it has a lot of punches in it, and I had to really work on that. The reason the way the Punch book came about was to get Imbibe published. I had to cut all the punches from it because I had to cut such a huge amount of words to get it to be publishable. And I had originally done my manuscript was all of the drinks in Jerry Thomas's 1862 book, or almost all of them would be covered. And a large number of them are punch bowl drinks. But then I realized as I researched them that most of those recipes were compiled from elsewhere. They weren't original to him. And then I found out through the help of my friend Phil Green, whose brother is a copyright lawyer, that the publisher of the Jerry Thomas book had copyrighted a title for that book as early, even 2 or 3 years before the book was published. And I began to suspect that they had been planning an anthology of drink recipes taken from elsewhere. And they finally got a bartender involved and redid it. And so this was that led me to the conclusion that most of these drinks really had very little to do with Jerry Thomas. So I cut them all ruthlessly and thought, well, maybe that'll be a sequel. That'll give me another book. It'll be easy. And it turned out it wasn't easy at all. It took another 3 years to get that done, and and there was a lot of work involved. But on the other hand, it really let me focus on punch and making punch and going around, traveling around basically the world, ladling out punch to people has been one of my greatest entertainments ever since. So I'm very glad it worked out the way it did.
And that was really the beginning, was it not, of the creation of cocktails? Beginning with punches?
Yeah, punch was really, it was the beginning
Cocktails were an offshoot of punch?
Well, let's say mixed drinks based on spirits began with punch as a popular drink, as a global drink. This idea that that's the best thing to do with spirits is to mix it with citrus and sugar and make something delicious. And so it starts there.
And safer than drinking water.
Safer, absolutely. Although not if you drink too much of it.
No,
I can attest to that. But yeah, absolutely. And it was really it was a foundational drink for mixology in general. And so it was fun to go back to the beginning with my research and go back to stuff I had studied in graduate school, which was the whole matter of settling the New World and colonization and all that kind of stuff.
Wow. And you wrote a book that we briefly mentioned at the beginning of the interview, and that is the Esquire Drinks book.
Yeah, that was my first book. It came out of my column for Esquire, and I screwed up my courage and got an appointment with the editor-in-chief, David Granger, and to my surprise, he said, "Yeah, sure, let's do it." And so suddenly I had to do it, and I was able to put together, I hope, fairly amusing book in the Esquire style, but with some actual historical research involved, and a whole bunch of good drinks in there. Not all of them executed perfectly. I learned on the job while working for Esquire, and in the early years, my mixology was extremely crude, and then I learned from Dale and and Gary and some of the best people in the business, and really worked very hard to polish my skills at mixing drinks. And now I think I could probably do okay.
And
but
how and when did BAR, Beverage Alcohol Resource, come about?
That came about we started really planning it and talking about it in 2005 when Paul Packelt and I and Dale and also Doug Frost and Steve Olson were all judges at the San Francisco World Spirits Competition. And Paul and I had been talking about, we need to get some education out here because this field is expanding rapidly and there's a lot of demand for accurate information.
And a lot of hacks out there.
Yeah, and a lot of hacks who really didn't know what they were talking about and were kind of poisoning the well here for people. And Dale and I thought Paul and I thought we'd talk to Dale to get a real bartender and a wonderful educator on board. And Dale told us he was having similar talks with Doug and Steve. So we all sat down together and thought, let's give this a try. And we did.
And wow, what an organization you've created, too.
It's still moving along.
You guys are still chugging along, right?
Yeah, we've had some struggles with COVID, but we did a whole bunch of online teaching in the fall, and we're right now we had to reschedule our January class because there's no possibility of really doing a week of indoor teaching right now, including unmasked tasting. But we're moving to a little later in the year, and we're going to continue and plug on. So yeah, it's moving ahead.
And the Oxford book, which I think we
Oxford
do need to
companion.
We do need to talk about. Well, first, actually, before that, I just want to read you the two inscriptions that you wrote to me in your books, Dave. I love them because they're to the point, and it says a lot, and it's really you. So for Imbibe, you said, "For Jonathan, who is kicking ass, David Wondrich." I love that.
There we go.
For Punch, thanks. For Punch, you said, "For Jonathan, fathom the bowl." I love it.
Well, that's that's when I'm happiest, is when I'm fathoming the bowl with my friends, dipping the ladle all the way down to the bottom. So
when you and Noah, because Noah Rothbaum is a co-author on this, or co-editor rather, and how did the conversation come about for this monstrosity, this bad boy here?
Well, I started it, and I was approached by Oxford, and after a couple of years, I realized I needed an associate editor, somebody who could help me organize all this stuff, and I couldn't think of a better person than Noah. So I brought Noah on board. The project had already been going on, and I'd been trying to develop the list of topics, which took a long time, and then Noah came on board when we were getting ready to assign things, and we narrowed down the list of topics to a mere 1,150 or so. Then the list of headings of entries rather, and then we got we spent a couple years trying to assign them to people, which took a great deal of doing. And then I needed to, as editor-in-chief, it fell on me to stitch it all together in a coherent fashion. And that took a long time. That took a lot longer than I thought. But there was a lot of stuff in there. It's a very diverse book, and one that's stuffed quite deeply with some pretty esoteric materials.
Exactly. It's got so much material in there that anyone who reads it will know everything that there is to know pretty much about spirits and cocktails, I would say. It's an encyclopedia.
Well, I certainly hope so.
It's a true encyclopedia. And and for our viewers,
it's pretty broad.
It's not necessarily something you would read from cover to cover. You don't really have to do it that way. You can if you want to, but it's something that you would use to look up a subject that comes to mind or that you're debating about with somebody else to solve an issue, an argument.
Well, my favorite part is, every entry is linked to other entries. It says, we send you to other places so usually that's just where you're grabbing hold of the topic, because then, it's the tip of the iceberg, because then you go to another place and another place, and eventually you get a pretty big pyramid of topics that one little entry has brought you into, and you can keep going. It really is a book that you can spend a lot of time in.
Yeah, I've been flipping through it almost every night, and last night I came across cocktail. That's a can of worms.
Oh my God!
That is a true can of worms, because there's so much material in there on that one term. Cocktail.
Well, there's so many things like that where we just had to bite the bullet and say, all right, look, we've got to take a stand on this. This is insanely complicated, but that doesn't mean we can ignore it or write like 48 pages on it. We've got to, write something and take our stance and, hope for the best. So that's one of those.
Well, you've covered that subject, I think, from stem to stern. I mean, if you read that section, you'll just know you'll never have questions about cocktails again.
God, I hope that's the case.
I think that's true.
Great to hear because it's a complicated topic. That's for sure.
But everybody should go out and buy that book.
I really like just so you know, I really like the cocktail music entry. I think that
that's a great one.
I think that is really, really interesting and so unique.
Yeah, we got Brother Cleve to write it. Who better? We got like real experts to write these things. It was a real pleasure, and often there were people who weren't normally writers, but we got the people who knew the topic. And we got Don Livermore, the master distiller at the biggest distillery in North America at Hiram Walker, the Hiram Walker Distillery, to write about blending and several other topics. We got some serious experts. We got Dale DeGroff. We got all kinds of people. So it was really quite something.
And kind of coming off of the heels of the release of this, you have been doing some book signing engagements, but I know that you've postponed some here and there. Do you have plans for anything coming up?
Yeah, as soon as Omicron, kind of blows through as we're hoping, and it gets a little safer to travel, we'd like to go to the United Kingdom and officially launch the book there. That proved to be a little difficult at this time. We'd like to go to the West Coast and to Chicago and Texas. And, Noah and I know a lot of people in this business, and we'd really like to see our friends again and get the
tell
book.
Me about it.
Yeah. I mean, that's really the thing is we just want to see our friends, and the book is not one that, it's not tied into this particular moment. We think it will have a certain life to it. And so we're hoping that we can travel over the next year and really introduce it to people in person.
It has a lifespan of at least 100 years.
At least.
If
God, from your mouth to God's ears.
Don't wait that long. Don't wait that long.
No, we're not going.
Get out there and start talking about it and meeting people.
We're going to talk as soon as possible.
Yeah, good.
Well, there's always so much that we can talk about, that we can chat about. We do hope to see you and to share a cocktail with you in person very, very soon.
God bless. I would love that.
In the meantime, this has been an absolute pleasure, and thank you so much for agreeing to be on our little show.
Well, the pleasure has been all mine. It's great to see your faces, and I look forward to that drink. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, David. It's great to see you.
Take care. The House of Lustau, well known for its premium portfolio and an unchanged philosophy since 1896, provides the most extensive and select collection of sherry wines, brandies, and vermouths. Vermut, red and white, is Lustau's unique line of aromatic vermouths with a base of sherry wines and a variety of botanicals. These expressions are exceptional in cocktail recipes that require a complex modifier. They're just as beautiful on their own if you wish to relish a simple poured drink over ice. Try them. They'll always delight.
That does it for today's show. To learn more about future guests, visit thecocktailguru.com or follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram.
The Cocktail Guru podcast is produced by First Reel Entertainment and distributed by EatsDrinksTV, a service of the Center for Culinary Culture, home of the Cocktail Collection, and is available via Anchor, Spotify, Apple, Google, and wherever fine podcasts can be heard.